We're live.
Thank you very much, Forrest. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 7:01. I am informed that we have quorum, and I would like to call the meeting of the Wellness Center and Pool Committee to order. As with all meetings of the Wellness Center and Pool Committee, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. For the benefit of those gathered and the public watching this virtual meeting, we'll start with a roll call of the 7 participating members of the committee present. When the recording secretary calls your name, please indicate that you are present. If your mic is muted, please unmute before you speak. All other individuals present in the large meeting are encouraged to turn off their video cameras in addition to muting your microphones unless you're presenting, so as to make it easier for us to recognize the voting members of the meeting. So Rebecca, if you would please proceed with the roll call.
Archipelago Reeve Bert Liverance.
Present.
McDougall Mayor Dale Robinson.
Present.
McKellar Councillor Morley Haskam. Please unmute your mic, Councillor Haskam.
Thank you.
I see you are present. Seguin Mayor Ann McDermott.
I'm present.
Thank you. Whitestone Mayor George Comrie.
I'm here.
Perry Sound Mayor Jamie McGarvey.
Here.
And we have regrets from Carling Councillor Terry Gilbert. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. My name is Donald Sanderson, and I'm the committee chair for this evening. So let's begin with the approval of the minutes. May I have a mover and a seconder of the November 6, 2009 open session of the West Perry Sound Pool Committee?
I'll move it.
I can second, Mr. Chair.
All right, so that was Dale was moving, and who was the seconder, sorry?
George Comrie.
Thank you very much. So I've been a motion that of the November 6, 2009 Wellness Center Pool Committee open session are hereby approved as circulated. Any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion's carried. Thank you. With your permission, I would like to ask for a mover and a seconder for the closed session of the minutes of the same date, November 6, 2019. May I have a mover?
Councillor Haskam.
Thank you, Councillor Haskam.
And I'll second it. Ann McDermott.
Mayor McDermott, thank you. So that motion is that the minutes of the November 6, 2009 closed session of the Wellness Center and Pool Committee are hereby approved as circulated. Any discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
This motion is carried as well. Thank you very much. Moving to the next item 1B, are there any additions to the agenda as circulated? Hearing none, may I have a mover and a seconder of the agenda as circulated? Mayor Robinson and Mayor Reeve Liverance, thank you. And that motion is that the May 13th agenda be approved as circulated. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you very much. Next item of business, so are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 3, which is new business, and 3.1 is a project update. I would now ask for Sam Spagnuolo, president or principal of CSP Architects, to provide an update to the committee on the project status. So there will be an opportunity for Mr. Spagnuolo and other members of his team when they're finished for the committee members to ask questions.
Thank you for inviting us. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to present quickly go through the presentation that we did last November, and then present where we are on our work plan based on all the work that's been done to this point. So I'll share my screen. Oh, it's not letting me share screen. All right. So as I go through this quickly, this is the same presentation we gave to you at the last meeting in November. So this is the basic rendering that we've done on the YMCA site. The table of contents, the vision, achieving our vision, going through the conceptual design, the benefits to the community. This was our vision based on the program that we presented to this committee, as well as the steering committee and the Citizens Advisory Committee. And our vision was to have a healthy, active living. This was what we figured was based on all the information we received, was the motto, or the principle, underlying principle for the wellness center. We talked about multi-lane lap pool, a full gymnasium, fitness, indoor track, multi-purpose rooms for the community. This was the conceptual design that we presented in November: a 6-lane lap pool, a therapy pool, a fitness area with a track, a studio, a full gym, multi-purpose rooms, and a room that could be used for future daycare. So 49,000 square feet. This was the draft program that we presented to you and the Citizens Advisory Group. And basically, we were waiting for an update from the Citizens Advisory Group on the program. We went through the benefits of having a community center like this, and the assets and the good value for money with the YMCA operating the facility, the partnerships available, and the players, the municipalities that are involved. This is part of the report that draft report that we've submitted to the steering committee for review, indicating why we believe you're a strong candidate for the funding application that we submitted. And we still today believe that we have a very strong application. We know there are a lot of applications that were submitted, but we think that this is a very strong application. We were involved in a number of other municipalities that submitted, and we still think this is one of the strongest applications that was put in from us. The benefits to Indigenous communities in the neighborhood, in the area, and the First Nations. And then I'll go to my work plan. 1 second. Okay. 1 second. So we've done a draft report. We've also, Bill Van Ryan's going to speak regarding the soil test and the phase 1 ESA that's been performed on the lands, and the reports are due we've got a verbal report, but in a couple weeks, we will have the actual official report. So this was the schedule based on us submitting to the steering committee and the Citizens Advisory Committee. So as you can see, we're behind schedule due to the pandemic, but it's very close. As far as our scope of work, we're 90 to 95% of our scope of work in gathering the information and putting the report together. The Citizens Advisory Group was going to present to the steering committee at the end of March. And then the steering committee would have met with the consultants in the beginning of April and summarized the Citizens Advisory Group's recommendations for the program for the Wellness Center. Then we would have modified our draft report for 2 weeks. And then we would come back with a final report as to the Mayor's Committee and to the Mayor's Committee with our recommendations and the final report. And then we would have spent May and June, the beginning of June, at the council meetings for each municipality. The reason we spread them out is because we didn't know if we could get 2 meetings at the same date, or so we spread it out. I'm going to hand it over to Bill Van Ryan to talk about the soils test and the ESA report, and then we'll take questions after that. Bill, can you?
I hope I'm there. If everyone can see me, thank you, Sam, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Just a very brief update on the field work that's been done for the Phase 1 ESA and the geotechnical investigation. So the Phase 1 ESA environmental site assessment is to verify if there's any contamination on the existing property based on the building, based on the site work that's been done, and based on the history of the site. And the building clean, no evidence of any contamination. We look for asbestos, PCBs, urea formaldehyde foam, lead, mercury in the paint, and that was all clean as expected based on the age of the building. I did note that there's been some filling on the site and couldn't verify whether that fill was clean or not in terms of access to that area, but that's not a big deal to solve in the future, and we have no real concerns about that based on the time that it was placed in there, which is a number of years ago. The geotechnical investigation, the drilling has been done, and the good news of that is the bedrock is generally deeper than we were originally estimating along the servicing corridor, along Perry Sound Drive, the site servicing sewer and water, storm sewer on site. We did encounter some softer soils and some peat in the area of the building. We're just looking at that right now. The portion of the building where the pool is will have a very deep excavation, so there's no concerns with regards to that. There may just be some areas where there might need to be some extended footings to get down to sound material. We're pretty confident that the savings in reduced bedrock is going to outweigh any extra cost for extended footings. That is the summary of the work to date on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And now we'll open up to any questions from the committee and the chair.
Thank you. Questions from Mr. Spagnuolo or Mr. Van Ryan, please. One final opportunity. Hearing none. Yes, Mayor McDermott. Please unmute if you're able to.
Yeah,
you.
sorry. Just a question, has any part of the evaluation looked at the viability of the existing Y building?
We did look at that. We had a building assessment done of the existing building, and there didn't seem to be a feasible value in keeping the existing building because of the age of the building and the general condition of the building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor McGarvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you were doing some of your studies and that sort of thing, my understanding is that the back portion of the existing Y building was sinking. And I remember talking to a contractor a few years back that was actually trying to shore it up and somehow firm up so it wasn't sinking any further. Did you come across any of that issue when you were doing your studies on that?
Susan, you're on the line. Can you talk about the building assessment done by the consultants?
Yes, hello. I'm Susan Lewin with CSP Architects, and I'm working together with Sam. Pynchon did do a building condition assessment of the building. They did find that there were quite a few building envelope issues with the building, including roof leaks, and issues with the wall assemblies. And as Sam said, well, first of all, it was functionally inadequate to reuse, as well as being in poor condition. Now, after reading the building condition assessment, which we can send to you, they didn't mention settlement of the foundation, which is what you were mentioning. So that would be interesting to have that information if you could send us, because that was not something that they pointed out in this comprehensive report that they did.
I don't think it's any information that we have, but it is information that, like I say, somebody gave me a few years back that that's what was happening. And it's that back area just beyond the gymnasium towards Smith Crescent. And there was a soft area apparently back in there. So it's just something to be aware of, and we don't need to get into something where we're going to have to be fixing it majorly. So that's just my opinion.
Actually, we did hear that the building was reclad fairly recently to cover up settlement cracks. This is something I have heard anecdotally, but because it's covered up with new stucco, we can't see the cracking.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report from CSP Architects? Moved by Reeve Liverance. By Mayor McGarvey. We have a motion that the verbal report of CSP Architects be received for information purposes. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. Thank you very much to our guests for your presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 3.2, the Citizens Advisory Committee Public Consultation Approach. I would now ask the committee chair, Tom Lundy, along with Vice Chair Ryan Purdy, to provide an update on the public consultation.
It's Tom here. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start and then I'll hand it off to Ryan. Listening to Sam speak, I think we were just a little bit behind the timelines as far as getting out to do our public consultations. But just before this COVID crisis hit us at our last meeting, and I haven't got the date in front of me, we were down to the final presentation with some fine tuning to do. And we had lined up 6 public consultation meetings across the various municipalities. And then everything kind of came to a halt. So where we are is we have, at that meeting, we had almost the final presentation. I'll let Ryan speak to that. And we had worked on a survey to go with the presentation to help us gather the information we would need to see what the interest levels would be with regards to everything in the presentation. Basically out of the building and what we could and could not do in each case. That makes sense, Ryan. I can turn it over to you to pick up from there.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, as Tom was saying, where we left off, we were planning the presentation and the survey. We were focusing around the programs that folks would like to see in the building, which would drive the features that would exist in the building. We talked a lot around 4 lanes and 6 lanes as a committee, and a lot of the recommendations that came out of the committee were the larger we choose to make any recommendations, likely that's where community members will navigate towards. If we said we should have an 8-lane pool, we feel that a lot of people would suggest an 8-lane pool over a 4-lane pool if the option was presented. But if we focus on what the benefit of the facility would be and what they would like to do in the facility, that would help drive the committee's recommendations around the features that should be in it. Where we're challenged right now is moving forward, we have to do this virtually. We will not be able to necessarily have consultations live for the foreseeable future. So we do have some options available to us. Along, we could have surveys that just go out on municipal web pages, and we can simply through a survey, 10 questions, give us, community members have an opportunity to give us their feedback, and that will help drive and finish our conversation. We could do town hall meetings similar that we would do live, where we would have just the setup similar to this, where we would allow community members to access the presentation and have a discussion, and allow them to ask the questions. We could also pre-record presentation and send out to everyone just a recording, which sends a link to the survey, so they get a little bit similar to what Sam presented, a little bit of the oversight, a little bit of an overview of the proposed facility, what would be in it, and then a survey that would accompany that based upon their recommendations. And then the feedback from the survey would allow the advisory committee to make their final recommendations to the steering committee. So that's sort of where we're at. We're just trying to navigate the next steps, and we are certainly, Tom and I are welcome to any feedback or recommendations of how we should, at this unique time, consult the communities.
Thank you, Tom and Ryan. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions from committee members? Yes, Reeve Liverance.
Yes. So when you prepared your presentations, have you added any economic questions for the community to answer, i.e. impact on taxes or anything of that nature?
So no, at the time we did not. Prior to doing this, we were, when we were setting up the presentations, we were asking elected officials as well as the CAOs to be present during the presentation, as we suspected those conversations may come up, and the committee as a whole are not in a position to sort of discuss and have that conversation without you guys present.
My second question would be is how confident are you that you can get the feedback depending upon the different methods to come forward with a presentation to the committee?
I think we can have a fairly robust survey that could go out to the communities within the next few weeks. We could do a 2-week turnaround time for community members to fill in the survey, and then we'd probably need a few weeks to analyze the data, then reconvene. So likely within a month to 5 weeks, we could probably have some data collected and some recommendations, and if that mirrors the conversation that we've been having as a committee with the pulse of the communities.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate your efforts on this. That's all my questions. Thank you.
If I could just follow up on Bert's question, at the last meeting, I think that Ryan and I attended was of the CAOs, if I'm not mistaken. We had agreed at that time that it wouldn't be appropriate for volunteers on the CAC committee to be responsible for answering tax-based questions and financial questions. And that's why we had asked that CAOs and or heads of council or local councillors would be in attendance at the meetings, and the CAO or head of council for the municipality in which the meeting was being held could probably field the testy questions.
Thank you for that clarification. Other questions, comments, discussion? Yes, Mayor McDermott.
A quick question on how you would distribute your survey. Given where we are with COVID, my guess is you're planning to do it electronically, but that might not reach the broad scale of our population. So I guess I'm wondering what other ways there could be to get that survey out that is not internet based for the citizens that don't have internet access.
I'll take a stab at that. We could have a hard copy version available. We don't have a budget, so it'll be up to the municipalities to print it. But it could be, the best thing I could think of is that people could pick it up at their town office or whatever location you wanted to set up.
Yeah, normally we distribute these things through libraries, and again, that's not our option. So we might need to get a little more creative. I mean, I'm sure this municipalities can photocopy surveys, but we might need to get a little more creative and get them into retailers or places for people to pick up, because the schools and the libraries are our normal way to reach the people that don't have electronic communication. So we need to get a little bit creative about how to really reach not just seniors, but we know we've got a fair number of young families that have no internet connectivity. So let's get creative on what we could do with hard copies.
Fair enough, yes.
Good feedback, thank you. Other questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, may I have a mover and seconder to receive the report of the Community Advisory Committee Chair and Vice Chair? Moved by Mayor Robinson, seconded by Mayor McDermott. I have a motion that the verbal report of the Citizens Advisory Committee Chair and Vice Chair be received for information purposes. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 3.3. I would now ask Councillor Hascom if he would like to provide more information on behalf of the Township of McKellar to the committee. Councillor.
Yes, hi, Donald. Yes, McKellar's passed a motion, and the motion states to postponement of the public meetings to allow time to discuss the affordability of the project. I think where that's coming from is because of the COVID-19 situation. I think a lot weren't sure of the financial situation going forward. And as has been touched on, Ryan especially mentioned about in the surveys going forward that nothing's really being included for the financial implications. And I know reading some of the minutes from their committee, the Citizen Advisory Committee, that there seems to be a lot of talk of going 6-lane rather than 4-lane, which I would think would add to the cost. And originally when our committee received the presentation from the consultants, we received estimate amounts, and so each municipality knew maybe approximately the maximum amount, what the maximum amount cost each municipality would be. And so I'm just wondering, going forward with the public meetings, whether there's being maybe a lot added on to that initial presentation and design that may increase the costs substantially, which may make some municipalities maybe feel that they're starting to stretch it a little bit. So I don't know how we would go forward, but whether somehow or another it can be capped off, like maybe whether the committee or municipality say, okay, a lot of good ideas are coming forward, but there is a limit to the spending. So I don't know whether our committee would be interested in maybe having a discussion on that, maybe at our next meeting prior to more public meetings, to somehow or another how we can put the message out there that, okay, we got to limit the cost at some point. We just can't keep adding on. If we're going to add on what we believe the public want, we may have to look at backscaling other aspects of the center. So that's basically where this has come from. So I don't know if any other members of our committee would like to comment on that or not. Thanks, Donald.
Mayor McGarvey.
Well, I think I just heard the consultants say that they've priced in or allotted in a certain amount of money or whatever. I mean, we have made an ask to the provincial and federal government for a certain amount of money to build this complex. And quite frankly, I believe in building it once and building it right and building it for the future. So I think it's the wrong message to send out that we look at scaling back, because this is for the future. It's not based on right now. And the area is growing. There are more people coming into it. When we come out the other side of this COVID, there is going to be a resurgence of people looking for things to do. And I think we need to stay the course. My understanding is that the provincial government has been reviewing the applications, and the federal government is still firm on supplying funds. The problem is that there are a lot of applications in with a large amount of funding. The bonus that we have going for us is that, you know, we have 7 municipalities, 2 First Nations, we've got a health center and other organizations that certainly support us building something like this for the area. And I think that we need to keep capitalizing on that and not fracture what we've done so far. There's been a fair bit of advocacy done already. I'm certainly supporting more advocacy if we can do it, and I don't mind helping in that, because I do know the people involved, they know me, and we're certainly able to bend a few ears. So I think we stay the course, we keep moving along, and you know, the consultants, if they're still on this particular Zoom call, if they can confirm that what they have in the build so far is the cost that is projected in the actual envelope for the funding application.
Mayor McGarvey, are you asking for that question to be answered right now?
If they're still on the Zoom call, I'm not sure if they are.
I think Sam's unmuted now. Sam?
Yes, I can answer that. The funding application that we put in was for the full program that we presented to this committee and the steering committee. So it's for the full 49,000 square foot program that was approved by the steering committee. And what we've heard and other applications that we are involved in is that the funding will come, and they are looking at it. As the mayor had said, there are a lot of applications, but a lot of municipalities have put in a number of applications, and in hope of hitting the target. But as I stated earlier, we think this is a strong application. We really believe this is one of our strongest applications that we submitted in. And if there are any questions, and the funding is for 72% of the cost. So if Susan's still on the line, she can confirm that.
We should just clarify that the costing for the new recreation center includes a 4-lane pool. And it was mentioned there's a desire to go to a 6-lane pool. So we should just clarify that the 6-lane pool is not included in the cost.
That's good to know. Those are the type of things that I think we need to know, and what's in the funding envelope ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Reeve Liveridge, did I see your hand up?
Yes, I'm not an economic professor or anything like that, but I would be very surprised if the provincial and federal government did not put more money in instead of less money post-COVID to help with this. And I would echo Sam and Jamie's comments that I think the fact that we have a unified position to the province and federal government would make our application shine even brighter in terms of helping our community. So I think that good things would be in store for us if we stay together on this.
Other comments? Yes, Mayor Robinson.
Yeah, just in response to McKellar's resolution, and we made a deputation at the Roma conference to the province asking for the funding, and no commitment there, but they certainly were impressed by the fact that all 7 Westbury Sound municipalities and the First Nations were working together. That answer came out pretty strong. In most of these cases, when they do push the button and say, here's the money, you better be ready to go or you're going to get passed over. So I'm encouraged to hear what the community has to say, which is what the volunteer group is doing for us, is soliciting that. My only comment there is the quicker they can get that part of it done and get back to the steering committee, the better it will be. I know this COVID situation has certainly hampered that a bit in terms of their ability to solicit it, but we're going to have to get it pretty quick back to us. And then the ultimate decision is going to come back to us as the elected officials and the steering committee to make the decision, because we're going to, as with everything else we do, we always have to balance what we want with what we need and what we can afford. So the sooner I'm looking forward to the final report from the Citizens Committee, because I think we need that input so people know that we listen to them. And then we're going to have.
Sorry, Mayor Robinson, you just froze at the. I think Mayor Robinson froze just at the end of his points. He's still frozen. I'm not going to make a comment about internet access in McDougall. Mayor McDermott. Please unmute your. I'm
going to echo what Jamie and Mayor Robinson said. And I believe we made a commitment to our community to consult them. And I'm not prepared to walk away from that. However we do it, we need to do some community consultation. It will be their facility in the future to come. So I think it's important that we proceed with the community consultation as best we can.
Very much. Welcome back, Mayor Robinson. Just at the end of your comments, you froze on us. Please unmute your mic if you may.
Yeah, I just had to switch devices here. Now I'm on an Apple device, so maybe it'll be a little bit better. I thought maybe the chairman had a button there and didn't like what I was saying and he pushed it.
Not at all. Thank you.
Anyway, I think I got my point across, so thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions, discussion? Yes, Mayor Comrie. Please unmute. Thank you.
I did. Well, at the risk of piling on here, I think we should stay the course. You know, we did the best job that we could, I would say, at the beginning of trying to put into the package all the various uses that we thought people would make of this facility, and some of it I think was done to make the application for federal funding as attractive as possible. But this is really an important step, this consultation with the community. They'll give us some useful feedback about how the facility is actually going to be used by the people that are going to use it, and that may lead to some refinements of what is actually proposed in the space. So I think that's a very important step, and I think this is a good time to do it. It's probably going to be a while before we hear what kind of funding we can expect, but we can use the time productively, it seems to me, to get that feedback and do any necessary refinement of the concept. And so I'm supportive of getting on with it. The folks from McKellar are right, of course. You know, the day will come when we will know what the package is. We'll have a good idea of what it costs, and we'll have a good idea of how much funding we've got, and then everybody's going to have to look at the cost. I don't deny that, but I think there'll be a time for that, and right now the time is to get on with consulting the public and get the feedback we need. So anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you very much for that. I believe we've heard from everyone. How would you like to proceed? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yes, Donald. After hearing the reps from the other municipalities, I don't believe a motion is necessary to come forward. And I'd just like to state that McKellar is all in. There was just a concern over possible additional costs and what's happening, and the main one being going from a 4-lane to 6-lane possibly. So there was just a little bit of concern on McKellar's part that it may be snowballing into a point where if we got approved for a certain amount, but all of a sudden our costs are way over. So no, I'm glad to hear that everybody's on board and heading forward, and McKellar is staying the course with everybody. Thank you
very much. Any other comments, discussion? Okay, we will note that discussion. Thank you very much. Sorry. Yes, move on to the next agenda item 3.4, grant application advocacy. And so there has been reference that it's a fairly competitive process, and there's lots of good applications out there. We believe that this one is particularly strong. And I believe that there is, we'll have a presentation from CAO Harris around a proposal for the advocacy. Mr. Harris?
Just got to find all the buttons.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I think shortly after you became the chair, you expressed an interest in having some advocacy. Then the COVID-19 hit, and we weren't able to schedule a meeting, and everything we all got diverted down other areas of activity. So since we're having this meeting for a couple of reasons, I thought I would put on this agenda the idea of advocacy. I don't think we can sit idle if we want our application to rise to the top. but it's just following on your suggestion about having more advocacy. At the steering committee, we've discussed it, and it really needs to be advocacy from the elected level, the political level, the CAOs. I mean, we can talk to our counterparts at the various ministries, but really it's political advocacy that's required. So what the report suggests, there's already been some done. Our mayor met with Norm Miller, went over the rationale and the program. As mentioned, Mayor Robinson led a delegation to the Roma conference, and I was pleased to hear what their response was when he mentioned they like the fact that 7 municipalities are working together with 2 First Nations. And I believe Mayor McDermott also provided the package to Scott Aitchison. So, and then when the Premier was in Parry Sound in February, we took that opportunity to spend a few minutes with him, provided him with a copy of the application and the high level merits of it. So it's about continuing that, and whether, members of the committee, one or a couple, want to be interested in taking on the responsibility for advocacy. The CAOs can help and support that effort if anything's required, but just wondering if there's anybody that the committee would like to appoint politically to lead that effort.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thoughts, comments, suggestions? Mayor Robinson.
As long as you don't cut me off, Donald. I think our steering committee is not that large with the 7 people involved. And you never know when you're going to find yourself in the right room with the right opportunity to promote this and speak for it. I think we're all on the same page, so we should be speaking the same message anyway. So I don't think there's any need for a committee other than the steering committee we have right now, with our ability to lobby for this. I know there's not going to be an AMO conference this year, which is another good opportunity, although I believe there's going to be a virtual AMO conference. But so my personal opinion is we don't need any separate committee to do this. We have our steering committee, and we can just take our opportunities when they present themselves. And those are my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Reeve Liverance.
Yeah, so as Dale points out, I mean, the AMO conference is probably going to be virtual this year, but would it be worth having another delegation of our municipalities to present this at the AMO conference?
Thank you. Mayor McGarvey.
Yeah, it would be a good idea. They are going to be the government is going to have virtual delegations. So we can certainly see about setting something up for a virtual delegation to do that. On top of that, Minister Clark, Minister Thompson, and especially Minister Scott, I have talked to all 3 of them about the project, and Minister Scott is the one that makes the recommendations to Ottawa for that. And I've made sure that she's aware that this is a group effort, and that we have great cooperation in this. Her answer has always been back, which she has to give, which, I have a lot of applications and there's a lot of, money and that sort of thing. But she knows that we are interested, we are serious, and that, we are all together on the same page on this. So moving forward, that's what they want. They want to see a collective group do that. There are a lot of solo applications out there for a lot of money. But there aren't many group efforts like this. So I'm hoping we come to the top of the pile, but we have to keep, letting them know that we're still here, we're still serious, and want to move forward. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get this thing done.
Thank you, Mayor McGarvey. Other comments, questions? Mr. Harris, based on what you've heard, do you have a recommendation how to proceed? If you could unmute your mic, please, Mr. Harris. Thank you.
Fine, if the committee, if that's the wish of the committee to kind of have 7 advocates, that works. What I think we could do as the steering committee, as the CAOs, is provide perhaps a little synopsis, a little briefing paper that's maybe 1 page, 2 at the most, so that everybody has that consistent message, and it's something you can even leave with someone. It has all our logos on it. You don't have to read I don't know how many pages the application is, but you don't have to read 100 pages. You can get a very quick picture of what we're proposing, what we've managed to accomplish that others haven't. And that's a good talking point. You can leave it with someone that you're speaking to. So that would help make sure that we get 7 people talking from the same messaging.
Thank you. So then would we consider this a referral to the steering committee?
For that, to create a briefing document.
Okay.
Sure.
Would you recommend a motion to that effect, or is just strictly a referral?
If you want to put a motion, this is all public, so I think it'd be good for the public to know that there's an action been taken.
Okay, so would somebody may have a mover and a seconder to move that we create a referral to the steering committee to create a grant application advocacy strategy to be brought back to this committee. Mayor McGarvey is moving that and seconded by Mayor Comrie. Any further discussion? Yes, Reeve Liverance.
So not necessarily on this resolution, which I'm in favor of, but also I think we should have a resolution on the table to go ahead and put it on our plate to do the delegation or make the arrangements for delegation at the AMO conference as well.
Okay, thank you. So let's vote on the first motion. If all in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. And then Reeve Liverance, will you move a motion that we make arrangements to make delegation to,
So moved.
and just the details of the delegation?
Delegation to the appropriate ministers at the AMO conference, with as many of our heads of council in attendance virtually, to demonstrate our strength and unity in our community.
Thank you very much. I have a seconder for that motion. Mayor McGarvey, any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It's important discussion. And item 3.5 is the ratification of an appointments to the Community Advisory Committee. And it has been submitted by Chair Lundy. I believe the removal of members of the Community Advisory Committee, and this appointment is largely a housekeeping matter. Mr. Lundy, is there any additional information that you would like to add?
No, Donald, we had 2 vacancies, 1 resignation and 1 person moved away. And we recommended 1 person to replace from Chewaga community.
Thank you very much. We have a mover and a seconder to accept the resignations and remove members from the Community Advisory Committee and make an appointment to the Community Advisory Committee per the recommendation in your agenda. Moved by Reeve Liverance, seconded by Mayor Robinson. So we have a motion that the resignation of Larry Fleetum be accepted from the Community Advisory Committee and his appointment revoked, and that the appointment of Glenn Barden to the Community Advisory Committee be revoked by virtue of his move away from the Parry Sound area, and that the appointment of Cheryl Judge to the Community Advisory Committee be formally ratified. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item number 4 is other business. Is there any other business properly come before the meeting this evening? Mayor McGarvey.
Just one point. Maybe when we do the delegation for AMO delegation, that we try to invite the 2 First Nations, if we can, to be part of that teleconference Okay.
Thank you very much. That's helpful feedback. We will do that. With respect to our next meeting, I'd suggest that it be at the call of the chair and or upon the recommendation of the steering committee when business demands a review or a decision by the pool committee. And seeing no other business, I would declare this meeting adjourned at 7:56 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Donald.